The year was 2007, and the small town of Cedar Grove was quietly nestled under a blanket of early winter snow. Streetlights flickered gently, casting elongated shadows across streets that were already littered with the first Christmas decorations of the season. Amid this gentle chill, young Eli Thompson sat cross-legged on the living room floor, a crayon in his small hand, completely absorbed in his work. His mother hummed softly as she prepared dinner in the adjoining kitchen, the aroma of roasted vegetables and spices mingling with the warm glow of lamplight. Eli, a bright and quiet boy of 7, had a fascination for drawing that went beyond childish doodles. He drew what he felt, not just what he saw. Sometimes his pictures looked like ordinary houses or trees, but other times they captured moments that seemed impossibly precise for his age. The way light fell through a window, or the way snow curved around a lamppost. That evening, Eli's mother noticed him drawing furiously, his tongue peeking from the corner of his mouth in intense concentration. "What are you working on, honey?" she asked. Eli didn't look up immediately. "It's a Christmas house," he mumbled, "with a special tree." His mother smiled softly. She knew this wasn't just any Christmas tree. She walked over and knelt beside him. The drawing depicted a small cottage, warmly lit, smoke curling gently from the chimney. The centerpiece was an enormous Christmas tree inside the house, decorated with glowing ornaments and shining lights. At the base of the tree, a tiny figure stood, reaching up to hang a star. "It's beautiful, Eli. Who's that by the tree?" she asked. Eli hesitated. "It's someone I'll meet one day. They'll need help." His mother raised an eyebrow, a playful laugh escaping. "Someone you'll meet? That's very specific, Eli." Eli shrugged. "I just know." At that moment, neither of them knew how prophetic those words would become. Years passed, and Eli grew into a quiet, kind-hearted teenager. He remained deeply sensitive to the people around him, often noticing when someone needed a hand or a kind word. His sketches became more elaborate, almost like blueprints of emotions rather than architecture. Teachers admired his insight, friends valued his empathy, but the drawing he had made that snowy evening remained tucked in an old sketchbook, forgotten among the myriad of other pages filled with sketches of streets, people, and landscapes. It wasn't until he was 17 that the memory of that Christmas drawing returned with startling clarity. A letter arrived at his house, an invitation to participate in a community volunteer program in the city nearby. Eli had always been committed to helping others, but something about this program caught his attention immediately. The initiative focused on assisting families who were struggling during the holiday season. He signed up, remembering vaguely the promise he had drawn years ago to help someone in need. The day he arrived at the first family's home, the winter air sharp against his face, Eli was greeted by a small child standing silently at the doorway. The girl's eyes were wide, her gaze wary. He knelt to meet her at eye level, offering a small smile. "Hi, I'm Eli," he said gently. The girl blinked, then slowly a smile spread across her face. "I'm Sophie," she whispered. Over the next hour, Eli helped decorate their modest living room, hung ornaments on a tree that seemed too small for the joy it contained, and listened intently as Sophie spoke about her wish for Christmas, for her mother to have a happy holiday despite their difficulties. As he stepped back to admire the small but radiant tree, something struck him. The room, the warmth, even Sophie's tiny figure beneath the tree, it all mirrored the drawing he had made 10 years ago. Every detail lined up in his memory, the tree, the lights, the sense of quiet hope in the air. He reached into his bag and on impulse pulled out the old sketchbook. Turning to that particular page, he placed it beside Sophie and her mother. "You drew this?" Sophie's mother asked, astonished. Eli nodded. "When I was 7. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "It's like it predicted this moment." Eli's own heart fluttered with a strange mix of disbelief and wonder. He had drawn it without knowing why, without understanding how it could come to life years later. And yet here it was, a literal manifestation of hope connecting past and present. The miracle didn't end there. Word of Eli's drawing began to circulate among the community organizers. More families requested his assistance, intrigued by the story of the childhood sketch that had foretold the happiness of another family's Christmas. Eli, however, never sought attention. He focused solely on the people he helped, quietly orchestrating small miracles, preparing warm meals, decorating humble homes, and offering simple gestures of compassion that left lasting impressions. By Christmas Eve, Eli had been involved with a dozen families. Each time he noticed a curious pattern. The elements of his drawing, the glowing tree, the smiling child, the warmth radiating from a home, kept repeating. Every act of kindness seemed to echo the original sketch, fulfilling it in ways he had never imagined. On Christmas morning, Eli returned home, exhausted but filled with a profound sense of fulfillment. He placed the sketchbook back on the shelf, realizing that what he had once drawn in innocence had grown into a series of real-life miracles. He understood then that the magic wasn't in the drawing itself, it was in the compassion, the presence, and the dedication that transformed simple acts into extraordinary outcomes. As he looked out the window at the snow falling softly on Cedar Grove, he whispered to himself, "Maybe every drawing has a life of its own, waiting for the right moment to come true." That night, the town glowed with twinkling lights and families celebrated with gratitude. And somewhere, quietly, a young man realized that the innocence of a child's vision could predict not just one miracle, but the promise of many more to come. Eli fell asleep that night with the sketchbook at his side, knowing that life often fulfilled the quiet wishes we make, even in the form of a simple crayon drawing. The following year, Eli was invited to a larger community event in the city, one that drew attention from local news outlets and charity organizations. He arrived early, the winter wind biting at his cheeks, his hands tucked into the pockets of his thick coat. He carried with him the sketchbook that had started it all, a simple collection of childhood drawings that now held incredible significance. Inside the hall, volunteers bustled about, preparing packages and decorations for families who were struggling to celebrate Christmas. Eli immediately noticed a young boy, no older than 6, sitting quietly in a corner with a worn teddy bear clutched tightly to his chest. His eyes were wide and uncertain, the kind of apprehension that comes from feeling unseen in a world that often overlooks children like him. Eli knelt beside the boy and smiled gently. "Hi, I'm Eli. What's your name?" The boy hesitated. "Lucas," he said softly. Eli's eyes fell on Lucas's small, empty Christmas tree in the corner. It was plain, undecorated, and clearly unloved. A memory of the childhood drawing flashed in Eli's mind, the glowing tree, the figure reaching for the star. He reached into his bag, pulling out a small box of ornaments he had brought along. "Do you want to decorate your tree with me?" Eli asked. Lucas's eyes lit up, and for the first time that day, a smile spread across his face. Together, they hung the ornaments, carefully placing each one as Lucas narrated the stories behind them. When they finally placed the star on top, Lucas's face was radiant, filled with pride and joy. Eli couldn't help but notice how the scene mirrored the drawing almost perfectly. The warmth, the light, the sense of hope that a child's imagination could bring to life. It was as though the sketchbook had become a blueprint for the miracles he was helping create. Word of Eli's extraordinary knack for spreading holiday cheer reached the organizers of a prominent charity gala. They invited him to share his story and artwork with the larger community. That evening, in a grand hall adorned with twinkling lights and festive decorations, Eli presented his sketches and narrated the story behind them, the childhood drawing that had, in its innocence, predicted a series of real-life Christmas miracles. The audience listened in awe, some moved to tears, others inspired to take action in their own lives. The local press captured the moment, photographing Eli with the sketchbook, highlighting the drawing that had transcended time to touch so many hearts. After the event, families who had been helped by Eli approached him, offering thanks and stories of their own. Each tale seemed to connect with the sketches in the book, forming a tapestry of joy and resilience. Eli realized that the miracle was no longer singular. It was multiplying, spreading through the acts of kindness he had initiated. Back at home, Eli reflected on the past 2 years. What had begun as a simple act of drawing in a quiet living room had transformed into a movement that brought happiness, hope, and connection to countless people. He understood then that miracles were not random. They were nurtured, cultivated, and shared through empathy and action. Eli carefully placed the sketchbook back on the shelf, the pages worn but vibrant, a testament to the journey that had begun in the innocence of childhood and continued to blossom into something far greater than he could have imagined. As snow fell gently outside, he felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that one simple drawing had not only predicted a miracle, but it also sparked a chain of goodwill that would continue to inspire hearts for years to come. The following year, Eli was invited to a larger community event in the city, one that drew attention from local news outlets and charity organizations. He arrived early, the winter wind biting at his cheeks, his hands tucked into the pockets of his thick coat. He carried with him the sketchbook that had started it all, a simple collection of childhood drawings that now held incredible significance. Inside the hall, volunteers bustled about, preparing packages and decorations for families who were struggling to celebrate Christmas. Eli immediately noticed a young boy, no older than 6, sitting quietly in a corner with a worn teddy bear clutched tightly to his chest. His eyes were wide and uncertain, the kind of apprehension that comes from feeling unseen in a world that often overlooks children like him. Eli knelt beside the boy and smiled gently. "Hi, I'm Eli. What's your name?" The boy hesitated. "Lucas," he said softly. Eli's eyes fell on Lucas's small, empty Christmas tree in the corner. It was plain, undecorated, and clearly unloved. A memory of the childhood drawing flashed in Eli's mind, the glowing tree, the figure reaching for the star. He reached into his bag, pulling out a small box of ornaments he had brought along. "Do you want to decorate your tree with me?" Eli asked. Lucas's eyes lit up, and for the first time that day, a smile spread across his face. Together, they hung the ornaments, carefully placing each one as Lucas narrated the stories behind them. When they finally placed the star on top, Lucas's face was radiant, filled with pride and joy. Eli couldn't help but notice how the scene mirrored the drawing almost perfectly. The warmth, the light, the sense of hope that a child's imagination could bring to life. It was as though the sketchbook had become a blueprint for the miracles he was helping create. Word of Eli's extraordinary knack for spreading holiday cheer reached the organizers of a prominent charity gala. They invited him to share his story and artwork with the larger community. That evening, in a grand hall adorned with twinkling lights and festive decorations, Eli presented his sketches and narrated the story behind them, the childhood drawing that had, in its innocence, predicted a series of real-life Christmas miracles. The audience listened in awe, some moved to tears, others inspired to take action in their own lives. The local press captured the moment, photographing Eli with the sketchbook, highlighting the drawing that had transcended time to touch so many hearts. After the event, families who had been helped by Eli approached him, offering thanks and stories of their own. Each tale seemed to connect with the sketches in the book, forming a tapestry of joy and resilience. Eli realized that the miracle was no longer singular. It was multiplying, spreading through the acts of kindness he had initiated. Back at home, Eli reflected on the past 2 years. What had begun as a simple act of drawing in a quiet living room had transformed into a movement that brought happiness, hope, and connection to countless people. He understood then that miracles were not random. They were nurtured, cultivated, and shared through empathy and action. Eli carefully placed the sketchbook back on the shelf, the pages worn but vibrant, a testament to the journey that had begun in the innocence of childhood and continued to blossom into something far greater than he could have imagined. As snow fell gently outside, he felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that one simple drawing had not only predicted a miracle, but it also sparked a chain of goodwill that would continue to inspire hearts for years to come. The winter winds of Cedar Grove carried a soft chill that whispered through the streets, rustling the pine trees and scattering fresh snow over the rooftops. Eli walked with purpose, sketchbook tucked under his arm, heading toward the community center where he had been invited to help organize a holiday event. It was his 3rd consecutive year leading these small acts of Christmas magic, and the town had begun to rely on his presence as a source of hope and inspiration. The center buzzed with activity. Children ran past, clutching handmade ornaments and glittering garlands, while parents arranged tables with donated treats and warm drinks. Volunteers scurried about, coordinating activities and ensuring that every family that walked through the doors felt welcome, safe, and cared for. Eli's first stop was a small, modest corner where a group of children sat drawing on the floor. They were creating holiday cards, their crayons moving rapidly as their imaginations spilled onto the pages. He knelt beside them, opening his old sketchbook to show one particular drawing, the one that had predicted his first Christmas miracle years ago. "This drawing," Eli explained, "was made when I was your age. I didn't know it at the time, but one day it came true. Sometimes we create things without knowing how they'll affect the world." The children's eyes widened, their curiosity piqued. One little girl, her hair in a messy ponytail, asked, "So your drawing made Christmas happen for people?" Eli smiled gently. "It helped guide it. The real magic comes from the care we put into helping others." Throughout the morning, Eli moved from activity to activity, helping families decorate trees, wrap gifts, and share meals. Each interaction brought a sense of fulfillment deeper than he had ever known. He watched as parents smiled with gratitude, children laughed with uncontainable joy, and volunteers marveled at the ripple effect that one simple drawing had sparked years ago. He remembered that day long ago, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, unaware of the significance of the lines and colors he had placed on the page. At the time, it was just a drawing, a simple act of imagination. Now it had become a blueprint of empathy, connecting hearts across time, generations, and circumstances. By afternoon, Eli found himself standing beside a family that had recently moved to Cedar Grove. The mother was exhausted, carrying the weight of work and worry, while her 2 children, shy and withdrawn, clung to her side. Eli approached gently, offering his hand and a warm smile. "Would you like to decorate your tree with me?" he asked. The mother hesitated, then nodded, allowing him to guide the children in arranging ornaments, hanging tinsel, and stringing lights. As the final star was placed atop the tree, the room transformed into a haven of warmth and joy. For a moment, the world outside, the cold, the snow, the worries, seemed to fade away. Eli opened his sketchbook once more and showed the family the old drawing. He said, "I made this years ago, and somehow it's helping me guide moments like this." The mother's eyes welled up. "It's incredible," she whispered. "You've created something far beyond what you could have imagined." Eli realized that the true power of the drawing wasn't in its prediction. It was in the acts it inspired. Every tree decorated, every meal shared, every smile sparked a chain reaction that carried warmth and hope into the lives of those who needed it most. Evening fell over Cedar Grove, painting the town in soft shades of indigo and silver. Eli gathered volunteers in the main hall of the community center, reviewing the day's events and planning for the next wave of families arriving the following morning. The energy was high, and yet there was a quiet reverence in the room, as if everyone understood the significance of their work. Eli spoke to the group, his voice calm but resonant. "We're not just decorating trees or delivering gifts, we're creating hope. Every small act, every moment of kindness ripples outward. This is how miracles happen." A volunteer raised a hand. "Eli, do you ever get tired? You've been doing this for years." He smiled faintly, thinking of the first time he had shared his childhood drawing with a family. "Not really," he said, "because every smile, every story, every bit of joy makes it worthwhile. The effort is nothing compared to the happiness it creates." Later that night, Eli walked home under a sky full of stars, the streets glistening from the day's snowfall. He reflected on how far the journey had taken him, from a boy drawing with crayons on a living room floor to a young man guiding real miracles for his community. Each sketch, each detail of the childhood drawing had served as a silent map leading him to moments of profound impact. At home, he placed the sketchbook carefully on his desk. Though its pages were worn and colors faded, it held an energy that was timeless. It was more than paper and pigment. It was a testament to the power of imagination, empathy, and action. Eli thought of all the families he had touched over the years. Their stories, laughter, and even their tears had become intertwined with his own narrative. He realized that miracles were not about grand gestures or monumental events. They were about noticing a need and responding with love, patience, and unwavering presence. As he prepared for sleep, he whispered into the quiet room, "The drawing was only the beginning. Now the real miracle is seeing it live in the lives of others." And somewhere in the quiet of the night, the snow continued to fall, covering Cedar Grove in a blanket of silver, each flake a gentle reminder that small acts of kindness, seeded long ago, could grow into something extraordinary, connecting hearts across time, space, and circumstance. The following Christmas season, Cedar Grove was abuzz with anticipation. The story of Eli and his miraculous childhood drawing had spread across town, inspiring not only families, but also neighboring communities. People spoke in hushed, reverent tones about the boy-turned-young man whose sketches had transformed into real-life moments of joy. Yet Eli himself remained humble, quietly preparing for the annual holiday volunteer event he had helped organize for 3 consecutive years. The morning was cold, but the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the streets with a golden glow. Eli walked with purpose, sketchbook in hand, knowing that each home he visited, each family he assisted, was part of the continuing miracle his childhood drawing had set into motion. His first stop was a modest home on Maple Street, a narrow lane lined with snow-laden trees. The family that lived there had faced a difficult year. The father had lost his job, and the mother had been working multiple shifts to keep the household afloat. Their children, siblings no more than 10 and 7 years old, had been quiet, wary, and withdrawn. Eli knocked gently on the door, and when it opened, he greeted them warmly. "Hi, I'm Eli," he said, holding out a small gift bag filled with ornaments and festive decorations. "I'm here to help make this Christmas a little brighter." The mother's eyes flickered with surprise and cautious hope. "Thank you," she murmured, stepping aside to allow him in. Inside, Eli set down his bag and began working with the children to decorate a small tree in the corner of the living room. He asked about their favorite colors, ornaments, and holiday memories, encouraging them to share stories while carefully guiding their hands in placing the decorations. The children's initial hesitation slowly melted away as they became absorbed in the magic of the activity. As the final ornament, a small, sparkling star, was placed atop the tree, Eli couldn't help but think back to his childhood drawing. The glowing tree, the joyful children, the sense of warmth radiating through the room, it all mirrored the page he had drawn years ago. And yet this moment felt richer, fuller, alive in a way the drawing could never have captured alone. The family's gratitude was palpable. The mother's eyes welled with tears as she looked at her children smiling, completely immersed in the wonder of the decorated tree. Eli realized then that the true miracle of his drawing was not prediction, but the inspiration it gave him to bring joy to real people. Later that day, Eli visited several more homes, each with its own unique story of struggle and hope. At one house, an elderly couple had been unable to afford any decorations, yet their spirits remained intact. Eli helped them string lights along the mantel and hung ornaments with the care of someone handling precious memories. At another, a single father was struggling to create a festive atmosphere for his 3 children, and Eli spent hours arranging small decorations and organizing a modest holiday meal. Throughout the day, he noticed a recurring pattern. Every act of kindness, every smile elicited by the decorations seemed to echo the drawing he had made as a child. It was as if the sketchbook served as both guide and symbol, reminding him of the potential for small, thoughtful gestures to create profound happiness. By evening, Eli returned to his home, exhausted but filled with an indescribable sense of fulfillment. The town outside was aglow with holiday lights, and the distant laughter of children drifted through the crisp night air. He placed his sketchbook carefully on the desk, the pages worn and slightly faded, yet vibrant with the memories of countless Christmases it had influenced. Eli reflected on the journey, the small boy on the living room floor, the drawing that had seemed inconsequential, and the extraordinary ripple effect it had created in the lives of so many. He understood with a quiet certainty that miracles were not isolated events, nor were they solely acts of fate. They were nurtured through empathy, patience, and a willingness to extend oneself for the happiness of others. That night, as he lay in bed, Eli contemplated the year ahead. The sketchbook rested beside him, a silent companion, and he knew that its influence would continue to manifest in ways he could not yet foresee. He drifted into sleep with a heart brimming with gratitude, hope, and the comforting knowledge that even the simplest acts of creativity and kindness could set in motion extraordinary outcomes. The next morning brought new challenges, yet Eli was ready. He knew that the season of giving was not measured solely by material gifts, but by the love, attention, and care shared among people. And with that understanding, he stepped out into the winter morning, prepared to continue the chain of miracles inspired by a childhood drawing, one home and one heart at a time. As the final week before Christmas approached, Cedar Grove was blanketed in thick snow. Streets shimmered with holiday lights, and the scent of baked goods drifted from open windows, filling the town with warmth and cheer. Eli's heart swelled with anticipation. This week would be the culmination of all his efforts, the moment when the ripple effect of his childhood drawing would reach its fullest expression. Eli's first stop was the local community center, which had been transformed into a festive hub for families in need. Volunteers hustled about, setting tables with homemade treats, hanging decorations, and preparing gift packages. Children laughed and played, while parents arranged seating and coordinated logistics. Eli moved among them, his sketchbook tucked under his arm, ready to guide yet another day of Christmas magic. At the center, he met a young girl named Sophia, no older than 8, sitting alone at a table, her eyes tracing the edges of a modest paper snowflake she had cut. She seemed shy and hesitant, yet there was a spark of curiosity in her gaze. Eli knelt beside her, holding up the sketchbook. "This is something I drew years ago," he explained. "It was just a simple idea back then, but it helped me understand that even small acts of kindness can create miracles. Would you like to help me spread some of that magic today?" Sophia's eyes widened and a small smile began to form. Together, they moved from table to table, hanging ornaments, placing candles, and assisting other children with crafts. The atmosphere was electric, yet intimate, a delicate balance of joy, anticipation, and heartfelt connection. Eli watched as families interacted, as laughter rang through the hall, and as gratitude flowed like an invisible thread connecting every individual. The drawing had been the seed, but it was the human connection, the attention to detail, and the genuine care that brought the true miracle to life. By mid-afternoon, Eli helped organize a special corner for children who had experienced recent hardships. He arranged toys, coloring supplies, and small gift packages, ensuring each child felt seen and valued. When he placed a small ornament on a child's mini Christmas tree, he noticed a reflection of the star from his childhood drawing glinting in the sunlight streaming through the windows. In that moment, he felt the full weight of the journey he had undertaken. The sketchbook, once a simple collection of crayon marks and imagination, had become a bridge, connecting hearts, inspiring communities, and reminding everyone that small, thoughtful actions could indeed ripple into extraordinary outcomes. As evening descended, families began to leave, each carrying gifts, memories, and a renewed sense of hope. Eli stood near the exit, exchanging farewells and receiving heartfelt thanks. Children waved, parents hugged, and volunteers lingered, sharing quiet reflections on the day's events. Finally, Eli returned home, exhausted yet elated. He placed the sketchbook on his desk, tracing the lines of the original drawing with a gentle fingertip. Every crease, every faded mark told a story of how imagination, empathy, and action combined to create real-life miracles. He reflected on the people he had met throughout the season, the small boy whose eyes had widened with wonder, the young girl who had learned that kindness mattered, the elderly couple whose spirits were lifted, and countless others whose lives had been touched. Each encounter reinforced the truth that miracles were not confined to legend or luck. They were cultivated, nurtured, and shared through deliberate acts of compassion. Eli sat by the window, watching the snow fall and soft, silent waves. He thought about the past years, how a single childhood drawing had sparked a journey of empathy and connection. The miracle had started with a simple crayon sketch, yet it had grown into something far greater than he could have imagined, a community bound together by generosity, warmth, and hope. With a final glance at the sketchbook, Eli whispered a quiet affirmation. May this magic continue. May these acts of kindness ripple outward, and may every heart touched remember that miracles are real, born from care, creativity, and love. As he turned off the lights and settled into bed, the town of Cedar Grove glimmered under a blanket of freshly fallen snow. In every home where Eli had visited, laughter lingered, warmth remained, and the spirit of Christmas shone brightly. The childhood drawing had predicted a miracle, yes, but the true wonder lay in how one person's compassion and creativity could transform lives, leaving an enduring legacy of hope and joy. And so, as the night deepened, Eli slept peacefully, knowing that the story he had started years ago would continue to inspire countless hearts for generations to come.